Shots had been fired, and upon our arrival, we found the suspect is deceased, and we have a police officer that's deceased.
The state's largest police force is mourning the loss of one of their own tonight. A Jackson police detective found dead inside headquarters.
Now in high definition, 3 on your side. This is the WLBT 10 p.m. report.
It's breaking news. We first brought you at 6, and now we know the name of the Jackson police detective killed at JPD headquarters tonight. Detective Eric Smith and an as-yet unidentified murder suspect were found dead on the 3rd floor of the building in downtown Jackson. Live in downtown Jackson right now, Joe Barnes begins our coverage from the scene. And Joe, we're hearing law enforcement basically holding vigil there tonight.
Yeah, that's right, Maggie. The Mississippi Bureau of Investigation is still inside JPD headquarters this evening collecting evidence. They're going to be here for a while. Now, this all started right around 6 o'clock this evening, and JPD says that Detective Eric Smith was upstairs on the 3rd floor interviewing a murder suspect when gunshots were heard. And here's the story. Just before 6 p.m., JPD cars come screaming down Pascagoula Street. Officers race inside after a report of shots fired and an officer down.
He was being interviewed on the 3rd floor of the police department. Later, we heard that shots had been fired, and upon our arrival, we found the suspect is deceased, and we have a police officer that's deceased.
Jackson Police Chief Rebecca Coleman says the suspect, Detective Eric Smith, was interviewing was a murder suspect. Some officers went into JPD headquarters with large weapons while most of the building was evacuated.
I pulled up and I just seen a lot of them rushing out of the police department, and one of the detectives came out. She was all upset and everything, and they just put everybody out of the police department.
Citizens and city leaders reacted with grief and shock after hearing an officer was killed in the line of duty.
This is indeed a sad day for our city. It's a sad day for the Jackson Police Department. Our hearts go out to the Smith family.
At this point, we're just waiting to get all the information that we can so that we can help those families who are dealing with this right now.
He was a real man in every sense of the word in terms of trying to help his community and help his family.
And Detective Eric Smith leaves behind a wife who we are told by numerous law enforcement sources, and she also identifies herself on her Facebook page as a sergeant here at the Jackson Police Department, a wife and 2 sons as well. And for a little more perspective on exactly today's events, David Kinney. David, you were actually here preparing for a live shot for the 6 o'clock news on WLBT when you noticed all of these police cars racing down the street.
That's exactly right. It was about 7 minutes to 6 when all of a sudden we started hearing sirens, and then we looked down Pascagoula Street and we saw blue lights, a stream of blue lights coming racing down the street. At that time, we saw officers jumping out of their cars. Many of them had their weapons drawn, going into the police department, some of them with bullet-resistant vests on and semi-automatic weapons. I saw Assistant Chief Lee Vance at the front door directing officers in. At that point, we really didn't know what had happened, but we knew something serious had happened because of just the response. And as time went on, as that hour went on, we still didn't know what exactly had happened, but we saw the aftershock, the aftermath, the officers coming out of the building very solemn, consoling each other, and we saw a long career veteran officers coming out just in tears, and now tonight we know why. This Eric Smith, as Mayor Harvey Johnson said it, he was one of the best. He really exemplified what a Jackson police officer really is. This guy had a long career here, was a very personable guy with many of the officers here, knew a lot of people, a lot of officers. I've seen former officers and current officers here tonight. Just an outpouring of grief here at the Jackson Police Department after this horrific event.
definitely the police department, police officers more than most are very, they have a very close bond. And we've seen that ATF agents have been on scene, Hinds County Sheriff's deputies, Hinds County Sheriff Tyrone Lewis also here, and along with many state troopers. Now, David, just for a little more insight too, inside JPD headquarters, there are numerous security measures. Obviously, we do not know what happened on the third floor. We do not know why there was gunfire exchange, but there are security procedures in place.
Right, that third floor is not easy to get to by any means. First of all, you have a security officer at the front desk, and then to get on the elevator to go up to that third floor, you need a security pass just to get the car to get to the first floor where you're at. To get it moving up to the floor, you also have to have that card again. And from what I understand, only detectives and only people who are supposed to be on that floor are allowed to get the elevator to get up to that third floor.
All right, thanks a lot. A sad scene, a veteran Jackson police officer dead tonight. Maggie, we'll send it back to you in the studio.
Well, Joe, at this point, do we know anything about the murder suspect? We know that so far he has not been identified, but he was being questioned by Detective Smith.
That is correct. We do not know the murder suspect's name. The Mississippi Bureau of Investigation is not releasing that person's name. At some point, we do anticipate Jackson Police making another statement. We do not know when that will happen, and we may learn the identity of the murder suspect that was being interviewed by Detective Smith. But as of right now, we do not have that person's name.
But at this point, we are being told that this suspect is the person who shot and killed Detective Eric Smith.
No, that is not what Chief Coleman said today at all. Chief Coleman said that basically they heard gunshots inside that room. Gunshots were reported inside that room. We do not know if there was a struggle. We do not know if there was another officer in that room who may have fired another shot. There are numerous possibilities as to how this may have transpired today, and police and the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation are keeping that close to their vest right now, especially as we are in the very, very early stages of this investigation.
Well, thank you so much. Joe Barnes reporting live from Jackson Police Headquarters. Detective Eric Smith has testified in some of the most high-profile murder cases in Jackson. He's being remembered tonight for his dedication to his job, his community, and his family. Detective Eric Smith is described as calm, determined, and dedicated to his family and his job. He handles some of the toughest cases, from the murder of James Craig Anderson in 2011 to the murder trial of Benny Gunn in December of last year. Detective Smith was also called on to work on cold cases, like the murder of 22-year-old Lester Cole in 2008. Smith has been on the force since 1995. He graduated from Callaway High School in 1990. Detective Smith was married with 2 sons. Smith testified as recently as last week in the George Affleck murder trial in the death of Diane Hearn, and against former detective Nateo Gray, who was convicted of killing his 1-year-old daughter. Condolences are being sent to the Jackson Police Department through social media from around the state and the country. Many who knew Detective Smith say he was a devoted father and husband who was active in his church and wanted to make this community a better place, not just for his family, but for the citizens he served. We go back now live to David Kenny. And David, you've covered many of the stories where Detective Smith was involved, haven't you?
That's right. He was here just about a week ago for a court case that I was covering. He is a very personable guy. Everything you said in that package, I can tell you that is who this guy was. He dedicated his life, I guess, to the police force. And for a person who had to, I guess, work on a daily basis, as you said, on some of these grisly murder cases, this was a very nice person when you met him in person. Every time he saw me, he called me by my name, shook my hand. A very nice guy. And you could tell tonight by the outpouring of officers who came here to the scene after this incident happened, just how much he was liked and respected here by the Jackson Police Department and other officers here around the metro.
And David, we talked about how he was called to testify in so many cases. We're hearing words like he's very thorough, he's a very smart detective. He knew the business, and he was about, again, prosecuting these cases and getting convictions.
Yes, he was about that and testifying on a regular basis in Hinds County Court right across the street. This guy had dedicated his life to putting the worst of the worst here in the city of Jackson away and building cases against them. And what we know tonight is he was here apparently at 6 o'clock in the evening interrogating a possible murder suspect when this whole incident went down.
All right, David, thank you so much. Again, David Kenny reporting live for us tonight from Jackson Police Headquarters. Now, we were the first to bring you this breaking news on the air and online tonight. To see more, including the full statement from Jackson Police Chief Rebecca Coleman, please go to our website, msnewsnow.com. We'll be right back. Thanks, Dave. The 2013 legislative session has now come to an end a few days early. Leadership from both chambers say it was the year of education. Mike McDaniel explains what's ahead and why lawmakers have more work to do.
House is adjourned, sine die.
With the bang of a gavel and a round of applause, lawmakers called it quits after nearly 3 months of hammering out new legislation.
We fuss and fight and disagree, but at the end of the day, we set aside those differences to come together and do what is right.
For Speaker of the House Philip Gunn, educational measures like charter schools, a third-grade literacy program, and a pilot for pre-K are some of the major factors in changing the state's educational system. The issue of charter schools was the main sticking point, but is now in the hands of the governor.
We've passed some really good ideas that will hopefully begin to turn the tide on our education front.
When it comes to the nearly $5.7 billion budget, both Gunn and Lieutenant Governor Tate Reeves say it reflects conservative spending, while still giving an increase to many agencies and reducing dependence on one-time money.
We were able to increase funding for our priorities.
Even though the session is done, lawmakers are expected to go right back to the Capitol for some unfinished business. The battle over Medicaid left the program unfunded for the next budget year. Each political party blames the other. Governor Phil Bryant will have to call a special session, but says he won't do it until he's confident there's some type of agreement.
To make the taxpayers have to pay for the cost of a special session to come back here so that Democrats can kill Medicaid is not something I'm going to do.
The session has also been plagued with tragedy, with the deaths of 3 representatives and 2 senators. Gunn told lawmakers that's when political lines blurred and parties were united.
When we've had those difficulties, we've all been there to support one another. And it just reminds me that we are a family.
From the Capitol, Mike McDaniel, WLBT News.
Now we move to the latest in the trial of a JPD officer accused of taking bribes. Officer Richard McGahee took the stand in his own defense today. McGahee testified the police informant who claims he was paying McGahee a bribe actually owed him money. That trial is scheduled to continue tomorrow morning. He paid the ultimate price serving his country. Now a community continues to honor a Brandon native, including one of the fellow Marines he died saving. 2 years ago, a Marine from Brandon was killed in Afghanistan after helping to rescue 2 other Marines who had been injured by an improvised explosive device. One of those who survived, Corporal J.B. Kearns of Virginia, is in town this week. Cheryl Lassiter caught up with him today.
America's not going.
Corporal J.B. Kearns says the family of fallen Marine Staff Sergeant Jason Rogers has been a second family to him. Kearns drove from Virginia to Brandon to participate in the Running for Jason 5K coming up on Saturday. It's hard for Kearns to talk about April 7th, 2011, when he and some other Marines were clearing out a known IED compound in a marketplace in Afghanistan. Rogers was their platoon guide. An IED exploded, injuring Kearns and Lance Corporal Bryant Lamphere.
The last thing I remember him telling me in Lamphere is, "I'm going to get you boys home." And then after that, we heard another explosion, and I really didn't know what was going on until later. I didn't know what would happen until later, but yeah.
He got you home.
Yeah, he got us home.
That second explosion, about 10 minutes after the first, killed Rogers just 2 days shy of his 29th birthday. Kearns is now a triple amputee. He has a metal rod in his left arm and shrapnel in his body, some of which is visible through the skin. But he runs. He plans to run on carbon fiber blades on Saturday's event, which begins at the Rankin County Courthouse at 8 a.m. Kearns is also going back to school to be a pharmacy tech.
How old are you?
23.
Wow, you have a long life ahead of you, don't you?
Cheryl Lassiter, WLBT News.
Registration for the run is $25. Proceeds from that run will go to wounded warriors and military members and their families. Just ahead, the Mississippi Braves open the year against Mobile. Highlights from Trustmark Park next in sports. A tragic story continues to develop in the capital city tonight. A Jackson police officer is dead, as well as a murder suspect. Let's go back out now to Joe Barnes and our crew live on the scene for the latest on Jackson Police Detective Eric Smith and a murder suspect, both found dead inside JPD headquarters. Joe.
Yeah, Maggie, still trying to piece together exactly how this tragedy happened on the third floor inside JPD headquarters earlier today. If you're just joining us, a little bit of background here on this story. It all began shortly before 6 p.m. That's when our crews first noticed a ton of JPD officers arriving on the scene, lights and siren, many of them going into the building with their guns drawn, while others were evacuated out of the building. And it took quite some time to figure out exactly what was going on. We continued to learn more information that an officer had been shot, and then later on, JPD Police Chief Rebecca Coleman comes out to tell the media that Detective Smith and a murder suspect have been killed inside of JPD headquarters. We do not know the identity of that murder suspect at this time. We do not know why the shots were fired in the interview room on the third floor. We do not know why this happened, and it will take some time to sift through that. The Mississippi Bureau of Investigation has not released any information this evening, and they are leading this investigation tonight, Maggie.
All right, thank you so much. Joe Barnes again reporting live from the Jackson Police Department headquarters in downtown Jackson. Thank you so much for joining us tonight at 10. Be sure to tune in to our morning newscast beginning at 5 a.m. We hope you have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow.
With the new Mississippi News Now mobile app, you'll never be without Mississippi News. From msnewsnow.com to text and email alerts for breaking news and weather. Mississippi News Now, it's all right here in the palm of your hand. Sponsored by Copaya Bank.